I find it really fascinating that Jack Mallers, head of the third largest Bitcoin treasury company, just came out and predicted Bitcoin to 200x over the next years. And I find this interesting that this is happening at the same time that Coinbase is finally buying Bitcoin. I'm interested in Coinbase because they are the world's largest exchange that custodies most of the ETF's coins, and they are the exchange that the majority of the public companies like Jack Mallers and Michael Saylor get their Bitcoin from. And they just indicated that they're going to start buying Bitcoin every week. And they also just partnered up with the world's largest bank, JP Morgan. This is a deep rabbit hole I want to explore with you guys today. But let's start with this 200x Bitcoin prediction that Jack just made.
How much higher?
A lot higher. My general framework from the highest level is human beings collectively, we own about $900 trillion worth of stuff. That's equities, the things behind us, real estate, precious metals, fine art, all of the things that we own. Half of that we're using as a savings account. We're owning the portfolio of companies or the art or the house to actually try and persist wealth into the future. I think Bitcoin's going after that market. It's going after a market of $400 to $500 trillion worth, and right now it's $2.5 trillion. So I think in purchasing power terms, Bitcoin can go up 100 to 200 times more from here.
All right, so we know Bitcoin obviously is the most house.
So just for those doing maths at home, I believe that would indicate, what, $20 million Bitcoin price tag? A 200x from here? And that, I believe, does not factor in the Bitcoin multiplier effect. We are going to be running some numbers and having a look at the maths today, but I do think it's really interesting that we now have Coinbase partnering up with JP Morgan, one of the world's largest banks. And again, this is happening at the same time that the number of Bitcoin on the Coinbase exchange is dropping like a rock. And I think this is really interesting because we're talking about this bigger, broader picture. How much Bitcoin can publicly traded companies accumulate and buy? They are fighting over the last Bitcoin on exchanges. I love this chart here. The one I want to show you is the OTC desk supply of Bitcoin. Right now, I'm tracking this pretty closely. There's only about 150,000 Bitcoin sat on the OTC desks, and 80% of that available supply has been stripped off that market since 2023. Just another one of those things that just makes you go, what is happening right now to the price of Bitcoin? If we're watching all of this Bitcoin leave the exchanges, why is the price seemingly stuck where it is? Don't you find that a little bit interesting? Again, we've kind of opened up the canary or the rabbit hole, so to say, that is the paper Bitcoin. I don't want to go into that today. What I do just want to talk about is the Bitcoin on supply. The Bitcoin supply on exchanges. Because I think it's really interesting, because I think Coinbase is an exchange worth mentioning because they have so much Bitcoin in Coinbase custody. For example, I believe a large chunk of Michael Saylor's coins is in Coinbase custody, and so is a large majority of the Bitcoin held by the Bitcoin ETFs like BlackRock. Yours truly, good old BlackRock. And we can see if you look at the number of Bitcoin on the Coinbase exchange in the red line, you can see it's absolutely dropping like a rock. Their supply has gone from about 1 million to 200,000-ish Bitcoin on that Coinbase exchange. But the large majority of this has flowed into Coinbase custody. Now, the supply shock deniers, they will say, no, look at the blue line. The blue line indicates how much Bitcoin is on the Coinbase entity in total. So this includes Michael Saylor's coins. This includes the ETF coins. And some people are saying the supply shock is actually not happening because we have to count the Bitcoin in Coinbase custody the same as a Bitcoin that's actively being traded on an exchange. I naturally disagree with this because Michael has said for a very long time, I hold 600,000 Bitcoin and I'm never selling it. But the supply shock deniers will say, oh no, but it's all the same. It's all held by Coinbase. So yes, even though Michael's saying that, we have to consider that Bitcoin the same that is like a Bitcoin that's actively being traded on the exchange. I disagree with that. And this is why I think even the supply shock deniers are incredibly bearish on Bitcoin. And even the charts that they try to fact check us with show that there's a clear downtrend in the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. Even if you trust their numbers and their logic that says, hey, Coinbase custody is just like a Bitcoin on exchange, You say, all right, I'll believe that. I'll accept that flawed logic. You can still see there's 200,000 Bitcoin less on the exchanges since 2022. And let's not forget, there's also 164,000 Bitcoin mined a year. So that is another what? Over 3 years, 500,000 coins. So when we start looking at things, I think it's undeniable that there is a supply shock. And I bring this up because there's some really followed and reputable people on the exchanges, in the space, who will say that a supply shock is not happening. I disagree with that, and I definitely get scared when we see comments like this. Unless you've really done the proof of work to know what you're looking at, you shouldn't be talking about this. I disagree, guys. I think the supply shock is accelerating, and I think that what Michael is saying is incredibly interesting. Now, I want to go back. I played this clip a little bit of it in the beginning, but there's a little bit more that meets the eye to what Michael Saylor just said on the national news.
We wouldn't want to own all of it. We want everybody else to have their piece. The nice thing there is there's 160 companies that are capitalizing on Bitcoin in the public market, up from about 60 last year. So the Bitcoin treasury movement's exploding. And companies like MetaPlanet in Japan and Capital B in France and Smarter Web in the UK, and then there's a raft of them in the US, Anthony Pompliano's company, and 21, they're all capitalizing. The big idea is I take digital capital, I issue digital credit, and a digital credit instrument can either be longer duration or it can be higher performance. We're offering 9% dividend yield with Stretch. The average money market's 4.2% dividend yield. No one would ever want to give a 9% perpetual yield in a bond that's backed by real estate or backed by gold or backed by any conventional fiat asset. But we're investing in Bitcoin, and my 20-year forecast for Bitcoin is 30% a year ARR. So it's easy for us.
So I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions about that. I do think it's really interesting what's happening. I think it's even more interesting when we've got Michael taken to Twitter and still trying to orange pill Michael Dell, CEO of one of the biggest publicly traded companies, of course, which is Dell. Again, this is more recently. We have a strategy. Michael Dell tweeted out, when someone has a strategy you don't understand or agree with, it's a good thing to ask yourself, what if it works? And again, I think it's interesting to mention Michael Dell because he was tweeting out those Bitcoin cookie monster memes a little while ago. And everybody's like, hey, is Dell a company that's a top 20 company in the world and a man with a net worth of about 10 billion? Is he going to start buying Bitcoin? This is the meme. He was tweeting this way back in July. When was this? This might have been 2024. Obviously, we've seen what the price of Bitcoin has done since 2024. So I think either way you look at this, I think we're going to start seeing a little bit of billionaire FOMO because, hey, price since 2024, we've more than doubled. I think Chris in the comment section sums it up. The supply shock will come. It's just a matter of time. Speaking of time, I do want to run the numbers and have a look at just how much time we might have left. But again, while we're talking about BlackRock, while we're talking about ETFs, again, I just want to remind you guys, if you do not hold Bitcoin in your own wallet, you do not actually own Bitcoin. Again, we talk a lot about the number of Bitcoin on exchanges, but please, there is one way we can, band together to fight back against paper Bitcoin, and that's put Bitcoin into your own wallet, okay? There's a ton of good wallets out there for you guys to choose from. I've used them all. There's Cold Cards, there's Ledgers, there's Trezors. You got a ton of great options. You got different strokes for different folks. But again, if you do buy a Ledger and use the link in the description of today's video, you're going to get $10 of free Bitcoin. I love Ledgers because they're just simple. They're really easy to use for most people. They don't complicate things, and they have some really cool designs. You can get a Ledger Flex, you can get a Ledger Stacks, and then you can get the more simple, easier to use Ledger Nano X's or Ledger Nano S's. Again, I think these are some of the tools that need to be in your tool belt, so to say. Again, Bitcoin on an exchange, it's not your Bitcoin. And if you go and buy a Ledger or a hardware wallet, I also recommend you do not write down your 12 or 24 words on paper. You should be putting that onto something that will last the test of time. This is why I recommend what Stampseed creates. They don't create stainless steel plates. They create titanium plates. They're one of the few companies in the Bitcoin space that creates titanium plates. They are better than stainless steel, and they are where your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words should be stamped into. Again, Stampseed's going to give you a 15% discount on anything you buy from them if you use a promo code Luke15. Everything you need to know for those two guys that'll get you sorted and help you fight back against the paper Bitcoin. Oh, I can't say that. That will help you fight back against the paper Bitcoin warriors. I can say that. Again, everything you need to know about them linked down below. So again, let's talk a little bit more about what the next year could hold for us. Scratch, he said August is going to be a month. I think it is going to be a hell of a month. I think it's going to be really interesting. Slate has said the supply shock is here. You are living in it right now. And again, this is what I think most people they're going to get themselves in trouble in, because the supply shock is happening silently. This isn't necessarily going to be something that is correlated in the short term to price. I've always said I don't believe that there's any correlation between the price of Bitcoin in the short term and the coins leaving the exchanges in the short term. This is the kind of thing that's going to play out exponentially, and it's going to shock a lot of people because it is going to happen really quickly. I think Robert here in the chat makes a really interesting comment. Maybe the supply shock doesn't happen until the 6102. Again, I think that's a really fascinating scenario. We do know that governments are going to have to get desperate here in the not too distant future, because we can see the money printer might be back. The Fed is now likely to cut rates next month. Look at that, 69% probability that we're going to get a 25 basis point cut when it comes to interest rates next month in September. This could be really interesting if the US joins the world and starts cutting interest rates and starts printing money with Bitcoin at $113,000 a coin. Maybe Jack is right. Maybe we're going to see a massive 200x from here much quicker than most people think. Maybe, just maybe, we could be on the cusp of a face-melting Bitcoin rally. I think it's all going to happen much quicker than most people think. Again, I don't think these models predicting diminishing returns are going to be accurate. I think it's pretty astonishing that Bitcoin's climbed from $16,000 in 2022 at the low to $116,000 in 2025 without the money printers being turned on in a big way. We're seeing a little bit of global liquidity increase again, but I tell you what, if the US starts cutting rates, could be time to pin your ears back, because things could start getting wild. And I think this kind of explains, again, nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin's going, but maybe the whales have an idea, because when we take a peep, we can see it's simple. They buy and price goes up after. And you can see when whales are selling in big chunks, they're typically selling because they know the price is going down. Or, hey, they could be pushing it down. It's a chicken or the egg kind of conundrum here. Again, I'll just encourage you guys. I don't think anyone knows where the price of Bitcoin is going in the short or the medium term. I think all we do know is that price will grind higher from here. And in the long term, I think that's pretty comfortable. In the short term, we've still got some bulls out there predicting 200x's with Bitcoin. I do think this little backflip here from Coinbase is fascinating. Coinbase just announced it's buying 2,500 Bitcoin. And the CEO confirms they're going to be buying every week. Maybe they were just embarrassed by Metaplanet overtaking them. Again, let's jump back on over here to bitcointreasuries.net. We can see Metaplanet, 7th biggest Bitcoin treasury company on the face of the planet. Where's Coinbase? Number 10. Coinbase was one of the first Bitcoin exchanges ever created, and they're only sitting on a measly 11,776 coins. Don't you just love to see it? I think it's really interesting. I think it's fascinating the domination we're seeing in the American markets here too. Have a look at how many US flags occupy those top 13 spots. 11 US companies. You've only got 8 from Canada and Metaplanet from Japan in that top 13. I think that's pretty interesting. That is probably a story for another day. I do think that is an interesting story, mind you. A story for another day. I think we're going to have to talk about what is going on with the Fed as well, because if we do start to see the money printers turned on in a big way, Again, I've showed you guys in recent videos, if Bitcoin just simply repeats what it did in 2017, like we're looking at $1 million Bitcoin in the next 6 months. If we get the big print, like Larry Lepard is predicting, maybe we're going to see even higher prices. I know that sounds crazy, but I just don't think the 2020, 2021 bull run was a real bull run. I think we're going to really see some fireworks happen over the next 6 to 12 months. Actually, while it's mentioning, if you do expect to see fireworks, again, prepare your Bitcoin exit strategy ahead of time. Please don't, get that little trigger finger too scared when you see high prices and make some mistakes. I have a lot of friends who made mistakes in prior bull runs by selling Bitcoin, and they ended up paying thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on the tax bill when Uncle Sam came knocking. I just encourage you guys, prepare a plan for the next upcoming Bitcoin bull run. I actually encourage you guys to just learn more about borrowing against your Bitcoin. I think this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be borrowing against my Bitcoin with a reputable exchange like Firefish in the next bull run to actually get some liquidity for my Bitcoin. Again, I like Firefish because they're completely peer-to-peer. They don't take custody of your Bitcoin. They use multi-signature vaults, and I think they're so good. I've already tested them out for this upcoming bull run. I've got a couple of loans open, and when the bull run comes, I know where I'll be going to be borrowing against my Bitcoin. I think they're even going to be giving you guys a 30% discount if you use a promo code Luke. Everything you need to know about Firefish is also linked down below in the description for you guys to check out. And again, get prepared. This bull run's going to happen quickly. I think a lot of people are going to get caught off guard, and a lot of people are going to be really surprised when that price starts running. Again, stay calm. We haven't seen a bull run yet. When Bitcoin gets moving, it's going to be fireworks. Let's not forget in 2017, Bitcoin's price was doubling nearly every 5 days. If I take you back in time to what was actually happening in 2017, Bitcoin's price was going from 2K to 4K in like 5 days. It was going from like 4K to 8K in a matter of days. It went from like 10K to 20K in like 5 days. And I think a lot of people just need to prepare themselves mentally for something like that to potentially happen in this upcoming bull run. Again, Bitcoin could go from 150 to 300K in 5 days. I think a lot of people would freak out. But again, you could see just how rapidly the price of Bitcoin went up. We went up from, 3K to 20K in a matter of just a couple of months. Okay, when the bull run gets moving, it's going to really get moving. And again, who knows how governments are going to react when that happens. I know that I won't be going back to Australia to find out. Let's just say that. While I'm actually talking about moving away from Australia and never going back, something we talk about here on the channel a little bit is geographical freedom. I think I've traveled to something like 50-ish different countries and maybe 100 cities over the past 4 years since I escaped Australia. A lot of people want to learn how hard was it to survive on Bitcoin over those 4 years, Luke. And again, I've actually started a whole separate channel to teach you guys, well, how hard or how easy it might be to survive on Bitcoin in these different countries. And I just published a brand new video literally today, about an hour ago. I tried to survive on only Bitcoin in Costa Rica earlier in the year. I actually did it with my boy who's in the comment section. I did see my man Green Candle in the comments here somewhere. I'll find him because he's got a terrible haircut. He's easy to find. There he is. The farts you're ripping through the... You can see my boy's there. We recently went down to Costa Rica, tried to survive on only Bitcoin for 72 hours. So if you do want to see that challenge, I'm going to put a link to that bad boy down below in the comment section for you guys to check out. And I am also going to put a link to that video up on screen. That'll pop up after this live stream is finished, somewhere around there. So check that out if you want to check out that new challenge on that new channel I've got. And if you want to prepare yourself for what might happen in the UK or the EU when I believe they're going to come and confiscate your savings, I've also done a couple of live streams on those topics recently. I'm going to put a link to one of those videos somewhere around there. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Apologies for the late start today, shopping with the girlfriend in Paris. It was time consuming. Let's just say that. I'll see you all in the next one.